Happy 2014. I'm glad all of you guys made it into the new year. All right, so this month's video, I want to talk about something pretty important that seems to be a pretty common misconception with both online and in-person DOMs. Oh, I should say it's kind of a misconception in not just DOMs, but in submissive interpretation of dominance. Okay. I want you to hear this and understand it, okay? Just because I have an interest in something doesn't mean that you have to as well. Do we hear that okay? Okay, let me explain. So there is this misconception that for someone like me, okay, in order to really please me or really serve me or anything else, you would have to really be my slave. And to really be my slave means that you have to be able to do everything that I might enjoy, right? Okay, that is a myth. That is a fantasy practice, really. And it's a fun fantasy to talk about. That, oh, you slave, you have no limits and you'll do everything that I want and, you can't say no to me. Yes, and the reason why that's a fantasy is because in reality, there are lots of places and lots of things that you really don't want to venture into, or you may not be ready to venture into. Unless you have a committed relationship with the person that you're serving so that person knows the ins and outs of you, why are you treading in those kind of waters anyway? You have no idea where your psychological pitfalls might be. You have no idea where something that might be unsafe for your physiology, any number of things, okay? But there might be things that are just downright icky to you. Here's a perfect example. So I got a phone call the other day from someone who wanted to serve a dominant friend of mine in another city, and said that he thought she was very, very beautiful and very intelligent, but she had pictures of her wearing leather and holding a whip, and so because he didn't like being whipped, he thought that he couldn't have a session with her. And I said, well, did you read through her interests? Do you have interests that would match up? He's like, yes, but not all of them. I mean, I'm not really into, feminization, and she likes that too. And I said, well, she, like me, has a wide variety of interests, which means that, we've learned how to be really good at a lot of different things and how to enjoy a lot of different things. It doesn't mean that we always have to do them, and doesn't necessarily mean that we want to do them with just anyone. It's all about chemistry. I've talked about this before. It's all about compatibility. Talked about that before. Okay, so where is the problem? The problem happens when you have an interest and the person that you want to serve does not have that interest. Now, in some cases, you can introduce someone there. I mean, I'll be quite frank, there were lots of things that I wasn't sure I was going to like or just really didn't know very much about. And it was a submissive who introduced me. He said, what about let's try this? And if it was something that I didn't need further specific education in, like I didn't have to go and find somebody, I said, sure, let's try it. I'm all happy to do that, and found that I loved it. Okay. But being a control fetishist means that I can find enjoyment in a lot of different activities, right? Okay. Just because your fetish is not identical to someone else's doesn't mean you also can't have a good time with them. Perfect example is, okay, so you want ice cream. You go in the ice cream shop and you really, really want chocolate, but they don't have just chocolate. They have chocolate chip. Do you say, oh my gosh, it's not exactly what I wanted, so I can't enjoy it? Or you can't be in there and be like, ooh, they have banana cream swirl or whatever. I didn't even think I'd like that. See? Okay. BDSM is very much the same way. Kink is very much the same way. There are lots of activities and lots of experiences that you may or may not like. You may or may not know if you're going to like them. But don't attach a stigma to any person, especially not a dom, based on how they look, how they dress, or how, what kind of pictures they have, or because they may have a series of extreme interests. For example, I'm very good with needles. I'm very, very good with single tailing. I can absolutely cut you and draw blood with a single tail. Is it something I'm going to do all the time? No, most people can't do that. Most people don't have the opportunity to be able to do that, even if they did have the pain threshold for it. So is it something that I'm like, oh, I don't ever get to do that, so now I want to do it? No, it's a time and a place for it. It's kind of like, I don't get to eat sushi all the time. I love sushi, but I don't have to have it all the time. So now when I do get to have it, it makes it even more special. Now, there's certain things that I always want to have, and I always want to have control. And fortunately for me, my fetish is satisfied by a variety of different activities. So see if you're compatible with that person. See if you're compatible with me. Where you're going to run into the problem is when you don't read through, someone's information, when you come to a snap decision, or when you make the cardinal mistake of calling me or emailing me or whatever and being like, you're so beautiful, I want to be your slave. Well, that's great, but how about you do your homework first and see if, you and I are even going to be on the right plane, right? All right, so the next one I want to talk about is image. We're talking about don't judge a book by its cover, right? Well, every Dom has a different way of marketing themselves, and my video is a perfect example of how wide and varied, a lot of things can be. And I've got videos of me in leather, and I've got videos of me in latex, and I've got videos of me in a t-shirt and, and panties, and I've got videos of me, in very, very expensive lingerie, right? Does it mean that I'm a jack of all trades? Yeah, a little bit. It also just means I like clothes and I like to look good and I like a lot of different stuff. So just because a Dom may have a picture on some website somewhere of her wearing something that you think is really scary or may not be your style, doesn't necessarily mean that that's her individual style and that's the only thing she can do. We people are not one-dimensional, and just like you don't want to be pigeonholed, for just one thing. If you send me a really, really bad picture of you and be like, oh, you're hideous, I'm not going to see you. Of course not. I'm going to give you a chance. I have no idea what our chemistry is going to be like, and I certainly am not going to look at your picture and decide whether or not I'm going to like you, because appearances mean absolutely nothing. All right, so I think that about wraps it up. And go and apply this to, to your everyday interactions with people too. There are lots of times that we come to snap judgments that really are not doing us any favors. What is your prejudice getting you? What is that stigma getting you? Are you yourself being a victim of stigma? I don't have to worry about it as much because fortunately, I can look the part for most things, and I can certainly act the part for most things because it's who I am. But other people may not be so fortunate. So give each other a chance and go on and keep exploring yourself. You never know what you might like, right?